From Los Angeles and also St. Louis, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Jeff Ponder. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It is Sunday, September the 7th, 2025. This is the first period of a three-period podcast. Our first period, with some of you are watching on YouTube, we'll cover all the big news from the past week in the NHL. Second period is our interview or special feature segment. We start our division previews this week with a look at the Central Division. And our third period is our fan feedback segment. We read listener emails, have our off-ice report, talk about what's going on in our lives. You can catch all three periods of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you're seeing on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Get notified when our latest shows are out. Doug Stolhan, my normal co-host, is away, but stepping in is Jeff Ponder, who has been our regular fill-in co-host. Jeff, thanks for joining. And why don't you remind people the podcast you do and a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of red on the screen right now. Your hat, my shirt, the background. Feel like I need to get rid of all this blue behind me. But yes, Let's Go Blues Radio is the name of our show. We run it like I don't know if you guys have ever asked anyone at Puck Podcast, but the reason it's called Let's Go Blues Radio is because we run it like a radio show. So we, like you, we have the segments, but we also do the banter. We have interaction with guests because we record live. So that's the whole idea behind it. There's a little background for you, but you can find us on all your streaming and podcasting platforms. What even is it now? It's not Google Play anymore. It's YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean. We also do video, as Eddie said, over at Facebook and YouTube. So subscribe to us there, and you will get to see this. If you're watching on the Puck Podcast YouTube channel, you can see this face more often, which we all know.
I don't know that. Want. Yeah, I don't know that that's really a big selling point, but you are looking different than I believe the last time you were on the show when you had dyed your hair blonde, just because you felt like doing it and did not look good at all. But you look a little better now with the hair back to its normal state of brown.
The wife was not happy with it. She hated it. I
don't blame her.
We took a trip together. We actually went to Vegas back at the end of July, and I surprised her. I got a haircut like 2 days before we left, and it had cut off all the blonde on the hair. So she was very happy. It made her enjoy that trip even more, so she didn't have to look at the blonde anymore.
Good for her. I'm sure that trip went much better after that.
It did.
So we're going to start with the news of the week. And unfortunately, we have to start with some sad news, as a hockey legend has passed away. You likely have at least heard of this if you were paying attention at all to hockey news. But Ken Dryden, a Hall of Fame goalie, won 6 Stanley Cups in the 70s with the Montreal Canadiens, passed away after a battle with cancer. He was 78 years old. This will kind of be part of his story, but Ivy League educated in the United States at Cornell, led the Big Red to a 1967 NCAA hockey title. His college record as a goalie was 76-4-1. Not bad. He then entered the NHL, won the Stanley Cup and the Conn Smythe Trophy before he even had a full season. And then the next year went back and won the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year. That's my all-time favorite Ken Dryden stat for sure. No one else has obviously ever done that before, or likely ever will. He won the Vezina Trophy as the top goaltender in the NHL 5 times. Conn Smythe Trophy, as I mentioned, his playoff MVP. That was 1971. 6-time All-Star, into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1983. Overall record of 258, 57, and 74. 922 all-time save percentage, 224 goals against average, 46 shutouts in just over 7 seasons. His record in the playoffs was 80-32. Retired at the age of 31 back in 1979. And after he retired, went into broadcasting for a while. He wrote a very famous hockey book, which I sheepishly admit I have not read, but it's called The Game. I've had it recommended to me many times, but I'm not one for book reading because I'm not very smart. But it's one of the best known hockey books out there. was the color analyst next to Al Michaels for the Miracle on Ice game when the USA beat the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't remember that from the 80 Olympics. And was the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs from 1997 to 2004 before deciding to enter politics. So, look, Ken Dryden was before my time. I never saw him play. I certainly knew of him. I wish I could sit here and tell you, what kind of goalie he was, or maybe some of the all-time great saves he made. I can't, unfortunately, talk about that. But as Doug likes to say on occasion about certain people, a life well lived by Ken Dryden. He accomplished a ton in his 78 years on and off the ice, and a true legend of the sport has left us.
Yeah, this was very sad news. So for me personally, I actually just recently on Let's Go Blues Radio welcomed on a filmmaker who made a documentary about the 1972 Summit Series. And we spoke about, for those that don't know, those on the U.S. side, obviously, I think we all kind of know what the 72 Summit Series was, but to see the deep dive into it for an American, I didn't know all the political stuff that was going on. I mean, obviously, you hear about the 1980 U.S. Olympic team and that whole story. Well, this was only 8 years before that, so there's Cold Wars going on for everybody, and yeah, Ken Dryden was one of the goalies for Team Canada. So, being able to watch some of the clips of him play, and just Ken Dryden being Ken Dryden, and you can just kind of see that. And there's even a couple games where he wasn't playing and he actually was commentating, which just goes to show how much they respected him. That it was like, hey, you're kind of the backup for Canada this game. Why don't you come on up into the booth and do some commentating? So, obviously just a well-renowned guy. You mentioned it, politician, author, executive. He was a lawyer. You mentioned he stepped away from the game. 31. He's a guy that I don't remember the exact phrase, so I'm going to paraphrase, but I remember somebody asked him, why did you walk away from the game so early? And he's like, there's so much more in life I wanted to accomplish. And like you said,
oh, by the way, he accomplished a lot. Well, he didn't play as long as maybe some, but he accomplished a ton, enough to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So there's that too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a shorter career than he could have done. I don't want to say short career, but yeah, the fact that he was still able to be an NHL, a Hockey Hall of Famer, and an NHL name that everybody knows. And then he went on, and did other things too. Like, just super impressive. And and again, you mentioned the 1980 game. I did watch that game that he commented on. A very, very bright man. I mean, obviously, just from the accolades you mentioned. But yeah, it's unfortunate to see such a great hockey mind leave us. And Eddie, I know that your fandom kind of started right around when mine did as well. I was just a little earlier in life. But it is sad when you kind of learn of these players that played right before you started, really paying attention. For me, Bobby Plager is a guy in St. Louis that I was lucky enough to meet. He was a guy that played long before my time, but it was like, oh, he's just kind of that old guy that hangs out at the rink, that you see, sitting up in the press box or whatever. And, unfortunately, he left us a couple years ago. And now Ken Dryden's another one of those names. We met, Greg Millen earlier this summer, how devastating that was. It's so weird to see these names that have been around the sport for as long as we've been fans start to leave this world. It's unfortunate, but like you said, a very, very good life lived for Ken Dryden.
No doubt. So we go from that sad news to just kind of the news of the week. I thought there were some interesting things said involving some prominent hockey names. And we talked about Connor McDavid a bit last week. I know we've got a couple of emails from fans that want to chime in on this. So this is understandably a big story until he signs his contract or doesn't. But the Connor McDavid situation where this is going into the final year of his contract in Edmonton, when you're arguably, or maybe not arguably, the best player in the NHL, and there's a chance that you could go somewhere else, that's obviously going to be big news. And it's in Canada, so it's going to be even bigger news. So he's going to get a microphone shoved in his face anytime they can to ask him about this. And he had some interesting quotes this past week, and I wanted to read them and react to them. He said, quotes, "I've put everything into my career. You only get one chance to do it and to do it right. And that lends to taking your time with it. And that's where we're at. There is a salary cap. My only desire is to win. So trying to figure out that balance is tricky. All options are on the table. And that would mean length of term, short term, long term, no term," end quote. So he didn't exactly, say, "I'm definitely staying here." I know a lot of people, including myself, think that's probably going to happen, but he's basically saying all options are on the table. I mean, he literally said all options are on the table, and that does apparently include him testing free agency at the end
To,
of this. That's a big thing to say. And I mentioned this last week. I want to ask you about it. I don't understand why he's doing this other than flexing, like that he can show everyone how powerful he is and just kind of have the hockey world on his every breath. I don't know any other reason why, because it's hard for me to believe that after the season's over, okay, you take maybe a month off, go on a vacation, rest up after a long playoff run. But at some point, you get in a room with your agent and you sit down and you have a conversation, and maybe he bounces things off you, you bounce things off him. But I got to believe after a conversation or a few, you have a pretty good idea of what you want to do and what you're looking for. It's hard for me to believe that he doesn't know what he wants right now and that this thing is just, we'll figure it out. I don't really know. We'll see. I just don't buy it. So what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, flex is obviously the first thing that comes to mind is like, you better offer me a max contract, Edmonton.
And I'm
That's the
sure
first
they
thing.
will. They will.
They will.
They will absolutely do that. So why not get it over with if that's what you want?
But maybe that's not what he wants. Maybe this is his way of telling other teams, there's a chance I'm entering free agency. You better clear away some cap space for me. That's the only thing that's coming to mind for me, which is
Yeah, I agree with you.
crazy to think that could, I mean, that would literally be the biggest free agent in NHL history, right?
Yeah,
Like at
yeah,
this point in his life, in his career, the player he is and where he's coming from. I mean, depends on what happens this season, but 2 Stanley Cup finals in a row. That would be absolutely insane. But that's the only thing that comes to my mind when I read these quotes. Like, because what's the canned response we always hear? It's always, my goal here is to, win with the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the Edmonton Oilers and I go out and win a Stanley Cup. I mean, that's the canned response you typically would get here. He's not giving us that. So it does make me think, open up those pocketbooks, because, everybody has pocketbooks nowadays in 2025.
yeah, yes,
Open
definitely.
up those pocketbooks, NHL GMs and owners, because I'm going to be a free agent and I want to get as much money possible that, max contract from you and get out of Edmonton. But I just can't believe he would say that at this point. If I could see if the Oilers have a short playoff run, he's still not signed. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to test the waters. But to say it a year before your contract technically has even started, I mean, it has started, but you know what I mean? The season has started. Very odd timing for this.
Yeah, I guess the only downside is just being asked these questions nonstop as long as this goes, because it's going to continue. And like I said, especially in Canada, especially in Edmonton, every city he goes into, especially north of the border, they're going to be asking about this. It's going to be nonstop. If he can handle the noise and doesn't care, and he doesn't care about that being a distraction for his team, it does kind of feel like it's a way of saying I'm available without saying I'm available. You know what I mean? Without saying those words. I kind of agree with what you said, and that's pretty extraordinary, because he's not going to just come out and say, "I'm not signing with the Oilers. This is my last year in Edmonton." That would be, I mean, what would his teammates think of that?
Yeah.
You're going to torpedo your season before? No, you're not going to do that. But if you want to leave the door open for this to actually happen, you say all things are on the table. and then you just kind
Yeah.
of let it go like that. And then when it's, you're not shocking anyone necessarily at the end of the year if you do leave.
Saying that is basically the slapshot quote of "Trade me right fornicating now."
I'm glad you didn't say
Uh,
the word because you never know with
yeah.
you. Yeah.
How about that? I'm learning, as I turn 40, I'm becoming wise at my old age. Um, but no, I just it is baffling to see these quotes from him. Especially again, and you said it. He's gotten in a room with his agent. He's talked to the GMs or the oil. Why am I drawing a blank? Who's the Oilers GM?
Stan
Stan
Bowman.
Bowman. Yeah, Stan Bowman, and he's definitely he's talked to the president. I'm sure, like he knows what he's going to say to the media. This is calculated. So it's just like you said, why, like, what exactly are you calculating at this point? Because you don't actually have an idea of what's going to happen. At this point, you know exactly what you want out of life, as Connor McDavid.
I
So
mean, I
yeah,
will agree with one thing he said, where he's like that you only get one shot at your career, and he wants to make the right decisions. And I that's absolutely true. And so I think that comment also gets my attention, where he's saying, "Hey, I only have one career. I'm going to do what's best for me." And
maybe he takes the Ken Dryden route and he becomes a lawyer.
I don't know if he has if he's graduated from law school or not. I guess he could. He could do that, but
Still could.
seems unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna wait and see what happens with Connor McDavid. Meanwhile, the other big player who's going to be a UFA after this coming season is Kirill Kaprizov for the Minnesota Wild. Seems like things are a little bit smoother in the state of hockey. In an interview with The Athletic, owner Craig Leopold of the Wild said that the contract extension that he believes Kirill Kaprizov is going to sign will be the biggest contract in NHL history. Which I think at this point, if Connor McDavid is going to take his time with this, that probably will happen. He said, "quote This will be a huge deal, likely the biggest in the NHL ever." End quote. He says, "I just feel like we're not that far off. I kind of think we're there. I like to believe when Kirill comes over and gets a sense again for the excitement and the love of the city, I think we'll be moving forward in a good direction." End quote. So it sounds like certainly the owner is basically saying, we're going to give you whatever you want. We're going to make you happy. We have to keep a player like you here in Minnesota because we're never going to get another player like you unless we draft you, which they did with Kirill Kaprizov. So it sounds like we'll see. It's never signed until it's signed, but sounds like Kirill Kaprizov is going to get signed before Connor McDavid, and that he will be at that point the highest paid player in the NHL.
Yeah, and he's not here yet. I mean, that's I think the only real holdup, it sounds like, is that he's not in North America yet. I think they want to get him over here first for the season, and then I think we'll see a contract signed pretty quickly. And keep in mind too that if he signs before July 1st, this is the last opportunity for anybody who's got a contract up to sign an 8-year deal. Because next year, under the new CBA, the highest you can sign someone, even if they're on your team, is 7. So I do think it's important to both sides to get that 8th year in there, especially Kaprizov. And I do think that this is going to be a massive deal, and it'll be kind of funny because if Kaprizov signs, or when he signs this, uh, it's going to be massive news in the NHL, biggest contract ever. Would it be funny if within like 2 hours Connor McDavid was like, "Okay, I'm ready to sign"? Because
Yeah, I need to
Kirill,
get more than that guy.
you got your hour in the sun, Kirill. It's my turn. I'm Connor McDavid. But either way, yeah, I mean he is vitally important to the Minnesota Wild. When he went down with an injury, that was not the same team, and they are looking to be back in the playoff race again this year. Without Kaprizov locked in full time and there for a long period, a lot of he's going to help attract possibly other free agents. So I think it's important for them to get him locked up long term and continue to build and be a better team that could be a perennial cup contender in a couple years. But yeah, right now he is their offense. You got to get him in there. You got to make sure he's locked in. And, hopefully in the future, they'll be, well, I say hopefully for the Wild, not for my team, because
Yeah.
A guy like Kirill Kaprizov in my division is very scary. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the second period. But yeah, I mean, for Minnesota, he is a vital cog in that machine that is the Minnesota Wild.
My favorite quote of the week comes from the father of a young NHL star, and that is Rob Hudson. He is the father of Lane Hudson. And there are some other Hudson boys who are coming up prominent in the hockey world. Maybe this is the next Stahl family, the next Hughes family, if you will. Multiple brothers playing in the NHL at the same time. But as we talked about on a show recently, Lane Hudson was a notable snub invitee for Team USA and their pre-Olympic hockey get together. And apparently the story was, and it's the only thing that kind of makes sense from a hockey standpoint, is that USA Hockey was kind of slapping back at him because he refused to play in the World Championships for the US. And they didn't like that. And so this was their way of getting even with him. So Lane Hudson's dad was on a podcast and they asked him about it. And he had this quote, you never know what happens in the future. My boys are also Canadian. So there is also a luxury there and a lot of great players that have been left off the selection for the Olympics and things like that. I think Brett Hull may have been one of them. He voted with his feet. He went from Canada to the US. There's all types of scenarios that are, I wouldn't say are in play, but are possibilities, right? So Lane Hudson letting USA Hockey know, hey, guess what? You want to snub my kid? Maybe he'll go play for Canada instead against you. How would you like that? And maybe my kids, if they turn out to be good enough, will do the same thing. His dad is from Canada. Lane was born in the US. So he has that. There's that option that he could play for Canada. So yeah, that was pretty fun that Lane Hudson's dad sending a shot across the bow there to USA Hockey.
I'll say that I kind of want that to happen because it would be fun to be on the other side of it. So again, as a guy who grew up, watching Brett Hull score 86 goals in a season, seeing him get snubbed by Team Canada. Actually, I don't even know if he was snubbed. I think it was more he was like, I got my U.S. citizenship. I want to play for Team USA. And then every time he'd go north of the border around Olympic time, he would get chants of traitor. He'd get booed. Loved it. It was so much fun to just like hear Canadian fans just get so riled up about it. So yeah, why not? Let's see that. Let's see Hudson go over and play for Canada, and every time he comes down here, we can chant traitor at him. That'd be fun stuff. But either way, I hope that his father had a discussion with him before he said this. Nobody wants that loud, obnoxious dad at the baseball game yelling at the other teams, So I'm hoping he at least said, Lane, is it okay if I talk about this on the show that I'm going on? Yeah, sure, of course, Dad, whatever you want to say. But if it's like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, I don't want this.
Yeah, I would typically agree with you about parents making comments in the media about what's going on with their kids, especially if they're obviously adults. But I think in this situation, it would be hard for me to see Lane Hudson not being a little bit pissed off about this. And I'm guessing his dad had his blessing. By the way, I looked it up because I thought that Brett Hull did get snubbed. And in fact, he did by Team Canada. They passed him over for an international tournament in 1986 while the USA offered him a spot on the roster. So that's why Brett Hull actually played for the USA over Canada.
That's right. I didn't want to say that so matter of factly. I thought that's what happened.
But the internet is a wondrous thing. God bless
it. Really is. It really is. But no, and I agree with you. And I think it was probably a conversation of, Dad, can you fornicating believe that the USA did not invite me to their camp? And his dad's probably like, go play for Canada. And he's like, I guess I could. All right, I'm going to go talk about it on the podcast. I'm sure there was some kind of conversation that happened at some point where Lane was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. So yeah, it was funny to hear a dad talk like that. And I'm a dad. I get it. I'm passionate about my son's extracurriculars too. So, I'm sure he was very upset when he saw Wait a minute. My son just scored 60 points. 66 points for the Canadiens, like one of the premier franchises in the NHL, and he didn't even get an invite to camp. Come on. So yeah, I would be very upset too.
So those are all pretty juicy things to kind of talk about. As far as like probably the big news, the actual, something going on news of the week. The NHL and NHLPA have agreed to expedite the playoff salary cap and changes to long-term injured reserve for this season, even though the new CBA doesn't go into effect until next season. The general manager is going to be briefed on the new CBA rules in a meeting in Detroit this week. The salary cap rules for the playoffs address the concern, obviously, that we've talked about on this show and many others as well, as using long-term injured reserve as a way to kind of hide players and then use them in the playoffs when you're way over the salary cap. So that's going to be a change this year. You are not the scrutiny on LTIR is going to be there this year, and you're not going to be able to hide those players. There will be salary cap rules that you will have to be in compliance with for the playoffs. And there are a few other things as well that are going to go into effect this year that aren't as big as that. But outlawing deferred compensation, relaxing dress codes. Players have the ability now to endorse wine and spirits, which is okay. Well, I mean, you know what? Honestly, why not? I mean, the league makes a load of money off of beer advertisements and things like that. Why shouldn't the players be able to do that? Right. The official vodka of NHL and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Also a prohibition on double salary retention in trades. That's over this head here. I will tell you that. And I know there's also the rules going into effect where you can't make those paper transactions anymore, where they would like send a guy down to the minors for like a couple days, but he never would go. And then they'd call him back up. And there was reasons for doing that involving the cap. Now, if you do that, that player has to play at least one game in the AHL before you can call him back up. So there's just some things kind of behind the scenes, but the biggest thing is the long-term injured reserve going into effect for this coming season.
I get it for the NHL, why they'd like, let's do this right away. Like there's, the fans for the most part do not like it. There's, especially the main thing that we're talking about here with the salary cap and the playoffs. Fans are getting riled up about it every year. It's honestly bad publicity. And plus, like, it is like the owners are probably like, for the teams that just can't do that, the teams that just don't have the budgets that the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Chicago Blackhawks or the Vegas Golden Knights have. Like, hey, we got to do something about this. But for the players, it's interesting because it makes you think that maybe because, the PA had to have at least some conversation with some of the players and say, what do you guys think? Should we do a rolling implementation of this? And the fact that the players are saying yes says that the players are noticing how unfair that is too, to me. Like, let's just say back in the day when it was Tampa with the Nikita Kucherov one, which is one of the bigger ones. I think they were 18 million over the cap or something for the playoffs. And it's like a team like Florida is like, we got to play you in the first round. Like, what is this? And obviously now Florida's won 2 cups, but just saying, like, for teams that had to fight against that, and like they had that, okay, not only are we playing the best team in the NHL in the regular season, but they added 3 guys at the deadline that they didn't have and that they are going way over on the cap for. Somehow we got to beat this team. So like it just makes you think that these players are probably like, overall, like, yeah, the teams that are benefiting, there's 18 guys that love it, but the rest of the league, the rest of the players in the league are like, no, knock that off. We want this to be fair. So that's the interesting part of this for me.
And not everything is getting fast tracked. You still can. This is still going to be the final year. You can sign an 8-year deal. They're not doing the 7 years a year earlier. The 84 game regular season is still next year. It's not going to be implemented for this year. So not everything, but the long-term injured reserve rule and playoffs and salary cap compliance is going to into effect this year. Speaking of salary cap moves, we've seen these kinds of moves, these transactions that involve players who don't play anymore, but a big name player, Carey Price, was traded this past week.
Oh my! I can't believe the
I
Canadians
know.
moved him.
That's shocking. He goes to the San Jose Sharks, and I did see some funny photoshops of him in a Sharks uniform, which you talk about players looking weird in another uniform. That it's funny and did look very weird. But Carey Price traded to the San Jose Sharks. Well, his contract, let's be honest, was traded to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for a 5th-round pick in 2026 and minor league player Gannon LaRock. Price hasn't played in the NHL since 2022, following multiple surgeries. I want to say hip surgeries, maybe it was knee surgeries, but obviously stepped away from the game because of health issues. This is the final year of his 8-year, $84 million contract. So it was a $10.5 million cap hit now for San Jose. I'm pretty sure the Sharks were already at the cap floor, so they didn't need to do this to get cap compliant. But I mean, clearly, I see why it benefits the Canadians, right? They're getting that. I mean, yes, they were going to put him on long-term injured reserve, but there are reasons why this was beneficial to both sides, which is obviously why they did it. This isn't the Sharks doing the Canadians a favor. There's something in it for the Sharks to be able to do this, but it is interesting that you have to wonder. Like, there's still, I think. I'm trying to think who it was that I think his contract. I think it was Shea Weber. Was he still? I mean, Shea Weber. You're a fan of his, but was his contract still active as of last year? I want to say maybe. So we do see these where he's going in the Hall of Fame already, and somebody's still paying him a check.
Yep. Well, I mean, my favorite player of all time, right behind my shoulder there, Chris Pronger. And this is something I've always said, and I know, maybe I'll pass some money over to Doug because I know he'd love to do this too. I would love to when I win the Mega Millions one time. If I win it twice, that'd be great too.
Yeah.
But I'd love to reserve a couple $1 million to where I just buy the jerseys of all the players that never actually played for certain teams, like Pavel Datsyuk and Chris Pronger for the Arizona Coyotes, Carey Price for the San Jose Sharks. The contract trade, Shea Weber with the Blackhawks. It's just they never ever played for that team, but they were kind of on the roster. And I love what Carey Price said on social media. He said, "Always a Hab, just a teal one for now." So, I mean, they know, they're paying attention. It's like, oh, I'm under contract with the Sharks. And I'll say too that for the Sharks, this one makes sense to me too, just because it's only 1 year. The Sharks are not going for the cup this year. They are not going to be spending to the cap. So just adding this for 1 year and getting a prospect out of it. I just think that it's just a good move by Mike Grier to just, go ahead and do this for one season. And, it's not going to hurt you long term. And by the way, it was right knee for Carey Price.
Okay.
That was the issue he was having. He had multiple surgeries and didn't want to have any more surgeries. But yeah, so just an interesting move. And like you said, it's just seeing the photoshops, because everybody does that now. And seeing his face in a Sharks jersey, like, it just does not fit at all.
Speaking of the Sharks, kind of a weird story. Don't know if we'll ever get what the backstory is on this. Probably not. But assistant GM Ryan Clough has stepped down, resigned his post with the Sharks. He had been there for 3 seasons. Before that was a Rangers senior advisor for hockey operations, but played 8 years in San Jose. So a well-known Shark. Went back home, I guess you could say, to be in their front office, and just kind of interesting timing of this. Not sure why. He released a statement. The club released it, said had to make a difficult decision, stepping away. Hope everything's okay with his family and all that kind of stuff. But interesting. Ryan Clough, assistant GM of the Sharks, has resigned from his position.
So no more playing the puck from his bench.
I was at that game. I was at that game. Yes. And I could not believe that nobody saw that as far as a referee is making a penalty call on that. And I was wild.
Isn't it amazing? And again, our referees, our linesmen, the game's so fast. It's so hard to catch everything. But there's moments like this. Like, there was a guy recently in one of my games that, because I like to compare myself to an NHL player.
It's reasonable.
Yeah, it is. And there was like a play where we were already on the power play. There was only one ref on the ice at the time, but guy trips me. I go flying down, and the puck's right there at my feet, and they clear the puck, and I skate by the referee, and I'm like, how did you miss that? And he was just like, oh, there was some debris on the ice I was picking up. And I'm
Yeah,
just
right.
like, what? No. You just missed it. No, I did. I'm sorry. I was looking the other way. The puck was at my feet. Like, how are you not having your eyes on the? It's just moments that happen. It's just some reason referees just do not catch it. And that was one of those. That was such a
Well,
weird one.
yeah, I guess in their defense, it was such a bizarre thing that they would even, if for people that don't know, Ryan Clough was on the bench for the Sharks in a game in LA against the Kings, and he played the puck with his stick reaching over the boards for some, like, why would he even do that? I mean, so I get why they probably wouldn't be looking for that because that's so weird, but yeah, it did happen. So
Yep.
a couple of signings and roster moves, just to mention the Calgary Flames and forward Connor Zary agree on a 3-year, $11.3 million extension. He'll make $3.775 million per season. Turns 24 on September 25th. He was a restricted free agent. 27 points, 13 goals, 14 assists in 54 games last year. Slated to play on the top line for the Flames this year with Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri. Some players invited for training camp tryouts, which training camp's obviously coming up soon. Kevin LeBanc, former San Jose Shark, invited to Hurricanes camp. Brett Leeson invited to the Wild camp. And the Devils have invited Kevin Rooney, Luke Glendening, Georgi Romanov, and Adam Scheel to try out with their team in training camp. Alex Formanton has signed a professional contract. He's going to play in Switzerland next year. You may remember he, along with Michael McLeod, Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, charged with sexual assault in that incident back in 2018. They were all acquitted this past year or this year. And the NHL still has not ruled on whether any of those players are going to be eligible to play in the NHL. But Alex Formanton, for now, is going to play in Switzerland. I assume there's some sort of an out where if an NHL team did contact him once he was eligible to play, if that happens, he could probably get out of it and come back to North America. But kind of keeping his bases covered. If that doesn't happen, or if any NHL team just isn't interested in him, he will get to continue his professional career over in Switzerland.
Yeah, he will ferment over in Switzerland. Yep. There it is. Right there. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah, that's way to go out on a high note. A couple of players going out, retiring. Derek Ryan announcing his retirement. 38-year-old undrafted center, played 10 years in the NHL for the Hurricanes, Flames, and Oilers. 209 career points in 606 career games. Had 1 goal and 5 assists in 36 games for the Oilers this past season. Did not play at all in the playoffs for them, and he has announced that he will hang it up. Same for goalie Aaron Dell. He played 7 seasons in the NHL, mostly with the Sharks, handful of games with the Sabres and Devils. He's 36 years old, hasn't played in the league in a couple of years, and finally realized, well, I guess that phone ain't ringing. Ends his career with a 50-50 and 13 record. Aaron Dell, former NHL goaltender.
Hey, that's not bad. I mean, for a backup goalie to have a
not a losing record, yeah.
13, yeah, that's pretty good. He played on some rough teams too.
And finally, the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame announced its class of 2025. Joe Pavelski. We got a lot of Sharks related news in here. Former longtime Shark and Dallas Star a little bit. Zach Parise, former Devil and Wild. I think he ended his career with the Islanders. Scott Gomez, former New Jersey Devil. Also female player Tara Mouncey and a hockey photographer Bruce Bennett. Unfortunately, the Puck Podcast did not make it into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame this year. Maybe next year.
Not this year. Not this year.
I will say this year.
Bruce Bennett, he has been around the game a long time. If you look up pictures of on NHL.com's website or your favorite team's website, a lot of times in the bottom right corner, you'll see Bruce Bennett. So he has had a very, very long career covering the game as a photographer. So it's nice to see him get some recognition. It's so weird when I hear these names, Pavelski and Zach Parise. Like, I was like, man, didn't Parisi sign somewhere last year in play? But it's like, no, that was like 4 years ago that he was with the Islanders. You mentioned Scott Gomez. He played for, I believe, 45 different NHL teams.
Wow, that's a lot.
Blues,
I didn't see
yeah,
that. Yeah.
Whalers up there, Golden Seals. He was all over the place. But he's a former Blue, was on the team for a very short period, and again, just a plethora. If you play Puck Doku, keep Scott Gomez in mind. He's a
Oh,
great play because he played on a lot of teams at the end of his career.
well, that's all the news I saw. Was there anything you saw, Jeff, that maybe slipped through the cracks there? Any hockey related news you wanted to pass along? I know some teams, maybe even including the Blues, have unveiled their third jerseys. I didn't like any of them, to be honest with you. The Hurricanes did one, and I didn't. They had these weird stripes on the shoulders. Was it the Kraken that did one? And it
Kraken
was,
released
yeah, I
one.
didn't.
Yep.
There was like 3 or 4 of them, and I didn't. I think Ottawa. I didn't like
Ottawa.
any of them. I really
I,
didn't think
I
any of them were any good. I'm a jersey nerd.
Yep. Yeah, the only one that I kind of think I might like on the ice will be the Senators. I kind of dug that one a little bit. I like the shoulders a lot, the black shoulders on the red. But yeah, I liked that one a little bit. But yeah, the Kraken, I was like, eh. And Hurricanes, man, I don't know. Unless they're doing a Whalers throwback, I've typically not liked the Hurricanes jerseys as of late. I liked when they first came in the NHL. That's about it. But yeah, Blues did. So they announced when they did their whole rebrand, they're doing the 2 new jerseys, and then what was last year's home jersey is now the third jersey. So that's their third going into this year. But yeah, for me, the Senators okay. Other two, nah, I'm good.
All right. Any other news? Anything I missed? Something I should have mentioned?
Let's see. My hockey team won a game last week. Do
Okay.
we want to talk about
Moving
that?
on. Moving on. That'll do it for our first period of the YouTube show. If you enjoyed it and you want to hear more, please check out the remaining 2 periods of the podcast. Search Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you are listening to the podcast already, second and third periods are coming right up. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Jeff Ponder, and we will talk to you next time with another edition of the Puck Podcast.
See ya.